Hey guys, welcome to day 2 of this week. We're going to dive into the multiplication part of fractions, and we're going to do it by two different things. On page 85, we're going to do multiplying fractions by percent, and on page 86, we're going to practice multiplying fractions by decimal. So I'm going to do notes at the top of each page, and then we'll do practice problems at the bottom of each page. And I'm going to go pretty quick with this, so if you need to stop the video to catch up on notes, please do so. Okay, first thing we're going to do when we're talking about multiplying by a fraction by a percent, the easiest thing to do is we want to get that percent to a fraction. So we need to convert the percent to a fraction. And the easiest way to do that is to take the percent and put it over 100. Okay, and examples of that would look like this. So if I had 4%, that would go to 4 over 100. Okay, it's just like we know that percent means out of 100, so that's the same thing that's happening here. So if I had 37%, I know that it's going to turn into 37 over 100. Okay, if you know, so I'm going to do this little asterisk here, if you know a fraction's percentage, you can use that. Okay, so what I mean by that is if you know that like 1/2, or sorry, you know that 50% is the same as 1/2, you don't have to write it over 100 because you know already that 50% is 1/2. Same for like 25%. You know that that's already 1/4. Or likewise 3/4, sorry, I should say 75% is 3/4. Sorry, that was not clear. Okay, so if you know what the fraction's percentage will be, use that. But if you're like, I have no idea how to write 4% in a fraction, just put it over 100, okay? All right, so once you have converted the percent to a fraction, now you are going to, so we'll do this as step 1. And now our second step is going to be to multiply the new fraction, which was formerly the percent, by the other fraction. And I'm going to say using the standard algorithm, but if you feel comfortable doing the like that visual representation, do that. Using standard algorithm, and I'm going to abbreviate that, okay? So let's do some examples down here. So examples. All right, so my first problem, I'm going to have, let's see, I'm going to try to switch colors. 1/3 times 25%. Okay, so I know that 1/3 is going to stay the same, and I'm going to turn 25% into a fraction. So I know, based off of what I wrote up here, that 25% is the same as 1/4. So I'm just going to turn my problem into this. 1/3 times 1/4 equals, and I'm going to do the standard algorithm. So I'm going to do this times this. So 1 times 1 is 1. and 3 times 4 is 12. So my answer is going to be 1/12. All right, let's say I have a different one. So we'll do a mixed fraction now, since you guys just did a bunch of practice with that. So let's say I have 1.5 times 8%. Okay, I'm going to need to turn 1.5 into a improper fraction first off, so I can multiply it. So I'm going to turn this into an improper fraction. So I'm going to multiply 2 times 1, which is 2, and then add 2 to that top numerator, which is 3. So I end up with 3/2. And now I'm going to multiply my improper fraction, formerly mixed fraction, by 8%. And I don't know what 8% is off the top of my head. So I'm just going to put it into over 100. Okay. So now I'm going to multiply straight across. So I'm going to multiply 3 times 8, which gets me to 24. And I'm going to multiply 2 times 100, which gets me to 200. Okay. All right. And I just happen to know off the top of my head that I can simplify this. They both end in an even number. So I know immediately I can simplify this. So I'm going to reduce it or divide it by the giant 1. And I know that this is divisible by 4 and this is 4. And I have a feeling I could do 8. So I already tried 8, but I'm going to do 8 anyway. And so you can kind of guess and check here. But 24 divided by 8 is 3. And 200 divided by 8 is 25. So my reduced fraction is going to be 3/25. Okay. So I'm going to write out a couple of practice problems for you guys on multiplying fractions by percents. And then we're going to do our other half. Okay, so here's a couple practice problems for you on multiplying fractions by percents. And I would pause the video here and do these problems and then move on to the other notes for today. So 3/5 by 15%. And then you're going to do 2 1/4 by 23%. Okay, so there's those two practice problems. All right, so I told you I was going to move quick today, so pause the video as you need to. Okay, now we're going to do multiplying fractions by decimals, and it's going to start out very similar. So I'm going to take, I'm going to convert the decimal to a fraction. So in this case, I'm going to take the decimal and put it out of the lowest place value. Okay, so tenths, hundredths, or thousandths. Okay, so what that looks like, let's get our example going here and go back to using purple. So what that's going to look like is if I have 0.76, my last place value is the hundredths place value. So my fraction is going to be over 100. So I'm going to have 76 over 100. If I have this decimal, my last place value is now the thousandths. So my fraction is going to be over 1,000. Okay, so 0, so it's 15 thousandths. Okay, so that's kind of what that's going to look like. And now that you have it in your fraction form, you're going to do what you did on the other side, which is multiply the new fraction, which is formerly your decimal, by the other fraction using the standard algorithm. Okay, so let's do some examples here. All right, so we're going to do should start this. So 7/8 times 0.55. Okay, so I know that 7/8 is already in its proper fraction, so I'm going to leave it alone. So I'm going to do 7/8, and now I need to get 0.55 or 55/100 out of a fraction. So I'm going to do just 55 over 100. And when I multiply that out, 7 times 55, and I had to do the standard algorithm. I already worked these problems out, so I did 55 times 7, 35, carried the 3, 35, 36, 37, 38. So I knew it was going to be 385 over 800. And I knew that 5 is going to go into it because it ends in 5 and it ends in 0. So 5 is going to go into it. So I'm going to divide. Oops, I should have done that as a divide by 5 over 5. And my reduced fraction is going to be 77 over 160. Okay, and 77 is a prime, not a prime number, but divisible by 11. And that's pretty much as low as that one's going to go. Okay, let's do one more quick example. So I'm going to do now 2 1/3 times 0.031. So I know I need to turn this into a improper fraction, and that's going to give me 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7/3. And I know that I'm going to have to put this over thousands because that last number is a thousands place value. And so I have 31 here. When I multiply 7 times 31, and I did the math separately, it's going to give me 217. And 3 times 1,000 is going to give me 3,000. And this, they do not share any like factors, so that is as reduced as that number is going to get, that fraction is going to get. So those are your examples, and I'm going to give you some practice problems. If you're like Mrs. Grossen, that was really fast, which it was, please, please, please come into my office hours today and we will go over this before you fill out your form for this, okay? So 1/6 times 0.125, and then your last problem is going to be 1 2/7 times 0.42. Okay, so there's your practice problems for today. Pop on over to see if you have an IXL to help you practice this. Come to my office hours if you need help, and we will see you guys tomorrow. All right, have a great Tuesday. Bye.